to conduct our mid-year instructional review.
I'm taking away mine.
Thank you, Ms. Bass. Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Fanoy. Good afternoon, board members. It is that time for that mid-year instructional review. We're going to jump right in. We have a lot of information to go through this afternoon, and we'll make it very informative for you all. Really important on the first couple of items here on the agenda, really need the board members to pay attention to the new information around our standards and what we know about the new standards at this time. And then our second item around career technical education. There's significant changes that are occurring both at the federal level and then in Department of Education that will impact what happens here in Palm Beach County for next school years in our middle schools and our high schools, and has a significant financial impact as well as school grades that we are monitoring. Then we'll get into our school improvement plan and the work that we're doing around equity, principal development. We're going to jump into the mid-year diagnostics and how that's playing out in our schools, give some academic updates, and then some work around the mental and behavioral health around the referendum components. What drives all of our work that we're doing each and every day is the vision and mission that you have set forth for our school district, providing that world-class education for our students. We're going to jump right in.
So we're going to start with what we know today with the release of the BEST standards. This timeline really, I think, provides a great overview of what we can expect with the professional development coming out from the state, as well as when we see the standards being implemented, our instructional materials adoption process, when we can expect the implementation of the curriculum, and then all of our statewide assessments. I think the biggest piece of information for our board members, for our schools, teachers, parents, is that for next school year, the 2021 school year, everything remains the same. Our standards are not changing, our assessments are not changing, our books are not changing. We are staying the same for the next school year. So that, I think, is the biggest piece of information and takeaway in order to calm any concerns that our teachers or schools might be having around that. What is in there, and that you can see in the instructional materials adoption process, is around K-12 ELA, is highlighted for next year. That is because the adoptions process is an 18-month process. It takes a long time to adopt a particular instructional materials. So that's an actual process that we've already begun, but our teachers don't see those in school buildings until the 21-22 school year. So that's why it's highlighted in the first column, but those aren't actually implemented in schools till the following year. In 21-22, we do expect to see our new ELA textbooks, and again, expect to see, because that is what we know as of now. We will have new standards, except that the guidance we're being provided, hence the asterisk that you see there, the guidance that we are being provided is that we are to implement the new ELA standards in K-2 only. And that is because the assessment is not changing in the 21-22 school year. So we don't want to teach one set of standards and yet be assessed on another. So because of that, we will only bring in the new standards in K-2 because we will have the assessment in the others. And then the following school year, we will, in that third iteration and column, we will have all new standards and go with the new assessment. In the Governor's Executive Order 1932, you also see here how we have some new assessment changes. For FY21, that is next year, we see the high school civics literacy assessment, that is for our grade 12 students. It is an option for schools this year that we have an option in our districts to offer that as an option for some of our grade 12 students. Also for FY21 next school year, all districts have been asked to provide this SAT or ACT for our grade 11 students at no cost. This is something that our district is actually ahead on. We have been providing an in-school school day for our grade 11 students with the SAT. And then for FY22, we will see the elimination of grade 9 ELA and the geometry assessments. The one thing to note, these are all three part of the governor's executive order. Still will have to go to the State Board of Education for final rulemaking.
So preparing for FY21 and beyond, we're looking at a federal, state, and local initiative all centered around career and technical education. Executive Order 1931 from Governor DeSantis states that we want to be #1 in workforce education by 2030. We've seen some of that legislation come out last legislative session with HB 7071, and we've started to implement that. What we're also seeing as part of this series of events federally is a reauthorization of Perkins 5. It hadn't been touched in over a decade, and in doing so, it's outset priorities to put emphasis and really increase rigor around career and tech ed. The structure of CTE, though, is rapidly changing. This is a bold and visionary leadership for our state, and in doing so, really looking at program sequencing as opposed to a one-and-done scenario just about industry certification. So they're really putting emphasis back on program sequencing that would start as early as middle school all the way through our high school, and then ultimately going to impact what our secondary to post-secondary looks like. We're focused on outcomes and not necessarily just industry certification.
So we have 3 buckets of work that our CTE team is currently working on. One came along with House Bill 7071, which was a statewide audit of career and technical education. And basically what the state did was take a look at how many students are concentrating within our CTE programs in every single district. And a concentrator is defined as a student who has taken 3 or more courses within a single CTE program. They took a look to see if the program was aligned with labor market, both at the state and regional level, as well as the graduation rates for those students who were concentrators. So in Palm Beach County, we have about 23 programs that we are required to do a deeper dive in terms of a localized institutional review, because there was not sufficient data for the state to be able to make a determination whether these programs would continue on or not. So they left that up to us to do a internal review of these programs. So our team is in the process of that. In addition, with Perkins, as Mr. Boggess just said, we have not had a reauthorization in Perkins in over a decade. And so we have a very heavy lift right now with a local comprehensive needs assessment that is similar to the audit in a lot of ways, because we are taking a deeper look at what CTE looks like on every middle and high school campus, and whether or not the schools are offering opportunities for students to concentrate, to get that depth and breadth. Also, what other extracurricular activities and things of that nature that are associated, whether work-based learning is associated with the program, whether students are able to take part in student organizations and so forth. So we're looking at enrollment, again, looking at concentrators and so forth with that work. And then finally, as of Wednesday, CareerSource Florida voted on a recommended list for industry certification funding list. So every year when our students take industry certifications, and in order to earn funding, the certification must be on this funding list. And so what you see on the slide here in front of you, in the green box for FY21, the certifications that are in that box will remain as a transition year for 1 more year. So schools will be able to continue to offer these particular certifications for 1 year. In the yellow box, these certifications were not recommended. So these will not be available for students they will be available for them to take, they just will not generate funding. So, and then in the blue, these are certifications that are being recommended as part of a new bundle, if you will. And so right now, our team is working very fast and furious, communicating with teachers, communicating with schools to try to revamp some of the course structure that we have that has been aligned to some of these certifications. In some cases, we're really trying to look for things because when you get rid of the certification, sometimes that impacts the program itself. So we are working diligently to try to come up with solutions and getting input from the field in terms of moving forward.
So looking at next steps.
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry. So I see in there emergency medical responders, and we have those throughout the district. I think we have some
18
very
schools.
successful,
19
18 schools. So why in the world would they cut that out? I mean, there's obviously a need for emergency medical responders, and they do take more than 3 courses, don't they, to get their certification?
They do, and I will tell you that between talking to lobbyists, Jay going to Tallahassee, other districts around the state, fighting to keep this particular certification on, they say that just did not meet the definition, and we're still trying to fight it, but that is one certification that did not make the list.
So I spoke to CareerSource Florida last week, 2 weeks ago, and in doing so, I spoke with Chancellor Hall and Chancellor Mack about this specific issue. And in looking at emergency medical responder, we had all the impact data that said this should still be on the list. The only piece that they continue to come back to is that it didn't meet the criteria statewide, therefore it didn't make the list. Here locally, and I'll speak for all of South Florida, Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach, we had more than enough criteria. And I would say that we're continuously working towards that April 1st BOE meeting. We haven't given up this fight fully, but certainly we've raised that question, Chairman Barbier.
So maybe we should show them the videos of the 2 students. You know, we have 2 students that saved somebody's life.
Yes.
So
Yes.
maybe somebody should send them videos and show what that program did. It saved 2 people. Our children, our students saved 2 people's lives. So I just don't understand the reasoning on this one, but we
If I
should
might
fight
add,
back
just
on
for
this.
the benefit of the board, we've also contacted our local delegation, our local lobbyists to assist us with this. So we've contacted, I've spoke with both the leader of the Economic Council, the Business Development Board, and others. Mr. Tierney's have been on call, so we are trying to rally all the troops to advocate on behalf, specifically to what Mr. Barbieri spoke to.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And looking at next steps, I spoke to the, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Andrews, you have a question?
Thank you, and I really do appreciate the CTE programs that we have here in the district, but I am going to take you back to some of those children who we are still leaving behind. And we're one district that gave up much of our monies years ago for programs for many of our children, especially our children in urban areas and rural areas. And we signed an MOU with the college. So with all this change that's coming forth and our monies that are gone, have been gone for the last 10 years, that's leaving so many children out, how does all of that play into these changes?
Yeah, I'll take, so with the revised agreement that we're going to be bringing to the board in the near future, I think, and working with Ms. Bragas, there's going to be a lot of opportunity to expand what we do on our comprehensive high school sites, as well as with our technical centers that we're working through to develop. So we do see opportunity for growth in this space.
And just a quick follow-up, because I have checked the other districts, and they're ahead of us on many of their programs, especially those programs that we gave away many years ago. So I really am looking to see what you're going to come up with, and can we get some of that money back? That's the question, so that we can do some of these programs. So I want to have a deep dive conversation on what's going to happen here.
Sure, we'll bring that forward.
So as part of the State Board of Action meeting April 1st, district staff is working to not only analyze but also forecast impact around what it's going to look like in all of our comprehensive middle and high schools. It's also taking a look at the financial impact of the industry certification funding changes, and ultimately district grade and that acceleration column that we're really working to target and focus in on. There will be a realignment of coursework and program sequencing, as Dr. Johnson prefaced and alluded to. What that looks like, we are furiously working to do so, and we'll be speaking to principals coming up at our next PLA next week. So in doing so, there are significant changes, but we are working tirelessly to make sure that it's in place and ready to roll for August of 20.
So I just want to reiterate, so the Career Source made this recommendation, they approved their board. Now the State Board of Ed to finalize this will be April 1st to move this forward.
Dr. Robinson?
Since we're talking about CTE, is there any progress in terms of creating pathways so that students at Riviera Beach Prep can participate in the pre-apprenticeship program?
Okay, yes, what we are, well, the answer from last meeting was that, no, we cannot use the funding from adult ed for that. However, we are in collaboration in regards to the other part of the development of Riviera Beach Prep with the other work in which we're doing, that we are considering, that we would like to look at some programming, additional programming. Goes back to Mrs. Andrews' point in regards to going back, looking at the MOU, the revised MOU with Palm Beach State. As we're developing our other programs, we're making certain that we are bringing back some of those programs that we're taking out. And it's all in development right now, so.
Go ahead, Dr. Robinson.
So thank you for that, and I think that's a good long-term plan. I think in the short term, though, it's my understanding that the Career Source has some kind of waiver process that we might be able to take advantage of for funding for the Riviera Beach Prep students to participate in the pre-apprenticeship. And if we can't get Career Source to see things our way, so to speak, can you at least give us a number on what it would cost for Riviera Beach Prep students if we were to pay for it out of the operating fund? Because it's a funding stream question.
Yes.
I mean, we could start tomorrow if we allocated the funds. And so as a just to finish the thought, if the Career Source waiver doesn't work, if you could just provide us with what is the number, what would it take in dollars to provide this opportunity for some of our students who are reaching for their second chance, and we need to help them.
Ms. Brew?
Thank you. And so, Dr. Sheffield, you actually hit upon what I was going to ask, because you actually answered Mrs. Andrews' question with regard to the monies that we gave up to the at that time Palm Beach Community College. My understanding when Dr. Avosa was here was that the university was not willing to give us back anything and to give us back, to let go of any of that money. So I am hopeful, if you're working through an MOU, that you will keep us in the loop, because unfortunately, the levels of the courses that they offer are not what we really need to have. We need a pipeline between our system and the college, and our system and jobs in the workforce. And there's big gaps, as Mrs. Andrews said. For any of us that have gone and seen Atlantic Tech down in Broward and spoken to the other districts south of us, we are behind. So please keep us in the loop with that. And before you update us on that, has anyone been appointed now to Career Source to run? Because I understand there's a change in the leadership.
Well, right now, the gentleman that has been, it's an interim. It's an interim position right now, so not permanently. But I do have to give kudos to Dr. Fenoy and Dr. Parker. I'm the president there at Palm Beach State College in regards to coming back to the table to allow for the collaboration with the MOU. And we are actively working. Legal is assisting through all these processes. And we probably are on the third or fourth rewrite, and we have a meeting coming up soon. So once we get a nice, clear product, of course, I'm sure Dr. Fenoy would like us to bring it to share it with the members.
And just as a follow-up, that's exciting, because my vision is that one day when we do have that real collaboration, I've told the story over and over that when my son graduated, vocational rehab told him there were no programs in Palm Beach County. You need to go south. So my hope is that we will address those students with disabilities as well when we look at those career training opportunities, because we are more inclusive now. We are graduating students with disabilities, with diplomas, and they need to be a part of that vision. Thank you.
Thank you. And as you know, we are continuously working through our strategic plan. No changes here as of today. In specific, as we work towards mastery of our long-term outcomes, one of the initiatives that we have definitely been working hard on and finally making some traction with has everything to do with how we go about strategic initiative number 2, which is to embed cultural competence, equity, and access in our instructional practices. So last time when we sat here before you, we had just approved, or you had just approved, our equity policy, which lots of stakeholders, external and internal, worked on. We are proud to announce that because we've been able to write job descriptions and hire, we now have 2 members of our team that are committed to paying forward on the recommendation from the New York Equity audit that was done in 2016, and one of the recommendations had everything to do with cultural competence. Everybody's shaking their head, they remember that. Well, these 2 courses that I'm about to talk about have everything to do with that. So we are designing a track that focuses on a track for teachers. So think about that. There will be 5 or 6 courses for the culture responsive teaching, and they build upon each other. But we're also, in that same vein, doing the same thing for culture responsive leadership. And imagine being able to go on our new equity website, which we're working on, and actually see what courses are available, and then actually register in e-learning, accessible to all employees, and doing some prerequisite work before each course to get your mind ready for what you're about to experience in the course. And continuing through those, all the courses build upon each other. And at the end, you're awarded a culture responsive leadership, a seal of cultural responsive leadership, or a seal of culture responsive teaching, depending on which track you actually mastered. Those are both being developed with a launch for the leadership to take place in this month, actually, in March. We'll be rolling it out at our PLA in March, conference-style PLA. And because we don't want to pull teachers out of the building, not a good time of the year, of course, we will be rolling out the culture responsive teaching portion at the end of May. That portion will be just for teachers that are not assigned to students at this time. We're not pulling anyone out of the building. And in the summer, they can take the culture responsive teaching for those that are actually with students at this time. Very excited about this, a long time coming. I know it was a recommendation back in 2016. And with that said, in the same vein of leadership, Dr. Rayapel and her team in the Leadership Development Department have been working really hard. And I think we came before you a year ago to ask for approval for a grant, if I'm correct, a grant that we were using to partner with New York Equity,
Leadership Academy.
New York, I was about to say Institute, I'm thinking about REI, New York Leadership Academy. And we partner with them because everything that we were trying to do was going to have a equity lens, and they had a good track record in that department. They work with us, and I'm proud to say that each one of you have been a part of this journey with our future principals. And some of the bullets that you see here have everything to do with what we said the program would focus on and what we actually executed on as the program went along, right? Most importantly, though, it wasn't just about preparing our future leaders to become principals. It was definitely about them taking back that learning every month and being the best employee for our district and their schools and our district sites. We just concluded the program. Dr. Rayapel and the team are already making tweaks to what we can do differently for next school year. And I can honestly say, if you go on Twitter, you'll see that a lot of the participants took a lot back. Everything from having courageous conversations around race in their school with their actual teams that they're leading currently, not as principals, but as assistant principals or district leaders, to changing the master board and changing the course selection sheet to make sure students that don't normally get access to certain classes get access. So just proud to give you an update on the fact that we promised you that we would do a gradual release, and we have officially released New York Leadership yes. Yes, I don't know why. Yes, our partners were awesome partners, but now we're self-sustainable. We've actually kept everything we've developed and we're tweaking it, and next year we'll be on our own, and I think we're going to do just fine. Looking forward to bringing the group that you all have experienced when you came to do your sessions before you for recognition in April 15. So that equity work continues to live through our leaders.
Thank you. Mr. Shaw has a question.
Yes.
Our teachers are required to comply with 300 hours on ELL training, and since we started with that, and the training that we currently use is probably close to 20 years old as far as the process that we use. And over the years, I've talked about how we can make changes in that. The equity program that you just talked about certainly is something that we should readdress now and give opportunities for our teachers to get those 300 hours without going through this prescribed. We're spending a lot of money having an outside agency provide this for instruction and services that have absolutely no meaning to our teachers to be in compliance. This could be one of the ways. So I'd like to see part of our plan to readdress the options that teachers can have to get those 300 hours without having to take it. It takes up to 2 or 3 years for teachers to take, although I think it's, Mr. Oswald, is it 6 courses or 5 courses that they have to take now?
Harvey said it's 5.
5 courses. 5 courses that each one of them is 60 hours. And I have yet to find a teacher that's ever felt like they benefited from 1 second of any of that instruction. So this is an opportunity for us to maybe help everybody out.
Okay, and I'll follow up with that with Mr. Oaxaca.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. You're bringing back memories for me when I was teaching in the classroom. I think that's when it rolled out. So we're going to jump into some data. And board,
I'm sorry, Dr. Robinson has a question.
Okay, thank you. I am really pleased to hear us doing something with equity rather than just saying the word. I'm just really pleased to see us taking these steps forward. I want to say that I think NYCLA was awesome, my interaction with them. And so you've done this work with upcoming administrators, but we need to do something with the old dogs, okay? Okay, and so in my opinion, I think that we might need NYCLA for them, but I just want to hear whatever your best plans are. I don't need to hear them now, but I'm just saying that let's not forget them, because many are entrenched in their ways. Okay, I'll leave that part there. So the other thing that I want to just make the point really to the members of the dais is that, so the policy talks about eliminating inequitable practices, but that doesn't reside just in HR, right? And so our current people that have equity or cultural responsiveness in their job titles are in HR. And so I'm hoping that in the foreseeable future, that the superintendent will bring back recommendations for somebody higher on the food chain that the board will support, that will look at equity across this system and make recommendations to the board and superintendent, because it can't just be in HR. I think this is a good start. I'm looking forward to witnessing these trainings, But I want more. I want better. I'm not satisfied yet. I'm pleased with the baby step forward. So I just wanted the board to hear that equity is not just an HR initiative. Thank you.
So we're going to jump into data now, transition here. Board members, you each received an email from me regarding a list of each of the schools and the diagnostic results. We're going to take a broad look here at each of our LTOs. In third grade, our third grade diagnostic had significant changes this past year to better align to the test specifications and a revised standards pacing calendar. We use an equal percentile. That's why you see the 54% still in the FY20 column. However, when we look at each school, we're seeing some positive results. Each of our schools have analyzed their data and have created plans to address these issues. In long-term outcome number 2, remember this is a composite score that addresses both ELA mathematics scores in grade 8 as well as suspension and attendance rates as a composite score. This we do see currently a decrease by 1%. We have see an increase of student absenteeism and by 1% and 1% in out-of-school suspension rates. We have created some tools in this particular long-term outcome for our schools, a list and targets each individual student. In long-term outcome 3, we've presented to the board about our graduation rates continue to stay very strong. There are a couple schools that we have provided some targeted supports based on slight decreases. And long-term outcome 4, postgraduate success, this is a lagging indicator. We're very pleased to show that we look like a strong 4% gain here at 72%, and then in each of the subgroups making considerable gains. And with the work that we're doing around master board analysis and our 2.0 version, that will meet that 75% by the end of next year. Just to provide some context, over the last 10 years, our district has made some astounding increases in students' participation as well as performance in acceleration. You can see over 15,000 students participating more from 10 years ago, as well as over 40,000 more exams, as well as an increase in the particular pass rate. The master board process is a continuous, it is done by seasons. We revise this with multiple different departments coming together to look at this and change this particular process. So very excited about some new deliverables that we're currently rolling out and on target for. We've also created some new tools. All of our principal supervisors have met with the leadership teams at their schools, analyzed their data, and are working on targeting specific goals based on demographics of schools. So our minimum goals is that kids in acceleration should match the demographics of a school, if not exceed, and then what are the support systems that are in place at the school so those students can succeed. Also, accelerating the timeline of when course selection sheets will come back from our schools is also accelerated so that our schools throughout the summer are more doing tweaking and targeting of individual students, again, addressing the issue of equity as well as access and supports around that particular area. In addition, we held our mid-year data reviews.
Mrs. Andrews.
I just want to say something great about this. I had a chance to go to Crestwood the other day, and I was able to see how the principal and the teachers were really looking at the students and actually moving the students in the acceleration process in the math, the language arts areas, and science, and how they were grouping them together with a group of teachers. Some of those kids who had never had the exposures to those high-level courses were getting a lot of support and assistance. And I saw it again when I went over to Palm Beach Central, when I saw the diversity in those classes and how the principals are actually moving these students and making sure they get the extra support so that they can be successful. So it's good looking at it here, but when you really go out in the school and see it and kind of watch the children, it's pretty exciting.
Appreciate that testimony, Ms. Andrews. And again, I have to thank all of the different departments, academic side, operations side, finance. We have FTE at the table, really working together on this process. So we also had our datacom that we do every year, our mid-year data reviews with our schools. So we target our schools, our in-school improvement, previously called differentiated accountability. Those were held on the dates that you see above. And also the schools that are being closely watched by central office. Again, these principals presented about their mid-year changes that they're making based off that data, things they want to start doing, stop doing, as well as keep doing. Schools that are officially in school improvement, again, formerly called differentiated accountability, so I want to get used to this new terminology, school improvement. I know it's used kind of loosely throughout. We have 3 schools. We have 2 elementary schools, Washington and Indian Pines. You can see at Indian Pines are making significant gains in all areas as well as by cohort. Washington Elementary School has seen some declines. We have provided additional targeted support through Regional Superintendent Coleman and her support team, as well as the central office to provide that additional support. At John F. Kennedy Middle School, our single D school there, you're seeing double-digit gains across the board and by cohort. Very excited about that. Your algebra issue, that's not necessarily a bad thing in that because, again, we're looking at offering additional opportunity for kids to take algebra. So we did have increased number of kids who are participating in algebra. We're providing additional supports so that they are successful. In our low 300 schools, majority of those schools are making strong gains in 2 or more grade levels. We are watching closely Lincoln, Lantana, and West Riviera. Now we're going to shift and talk about some of the academic updates.
Dr. Robbins?
Thank you. So can you tell me, do we have all of the kids who've been designated as having AP potential in AP classes yet?
No.
Not every single, but we're working on, again, how do we best utilize that tool. Some of that AP potential report may play out in ACE courses, so courses that are similar that are offered in Cambridge courses.
Okay, so what is the obstacle? Because this has been, 5 years or something? And so what's the obstacle? That's what, to me, I thought that was a major part of the master board analysis. And then these are the kids who, by standardized testing, have shown that they are predicted to do well in AP classes. And I'm trying to get the next group, right? The ones who haven't raised their hands yet, but I can't even get the ones who already demonstrated success on the standardized test in these classes. So what's the problem?
So it absolutely is part of the process. So that particular tool, that report, is used in the master board analysis process. So that's where the leadership team, the principal supervisor, are sitting down with the team and literally pulling out student by student to address the issues that you're bringing up. So on some of those reports, I know from my own personal experience, there are some exceptions where there's a particular student who may show up on, but may not seem to fit for a particular reason. However, we're closing that gap from that report, as you can see by the numbers. So that's where, again, the leadership team being held accountable through the principal supervisor to make that happen.
Okay, so I'm not finding that to be an acceptable answer. I'm just not. It seems to me it's the easiest thing on earth. Now, of course, I haven't walked in those shoes, but it just seems to me, here, you've got the kids, here, put them in the class. I don't understand it. And so I think I would like to start seeing by school how many students with AP potential and how many are placed at AP and ACE classes, and how many are not, and the demographics of them. Because historically, and in reports published by the Education Trust, they've shown where people would say, well, you must have just had a good day. We don't really think you can do it based on how you look. And that's completely unacceptable, and that's contrary to what we say we're about. So, at some point in time, we need to just slam it on the table and just say, this is easy. They're already identified by standardized testing. I don't understand. Okay, I'm gonna back it up because I don't even understand. This the simplest thing on earth to me. Then the other thing is, as a follow-up, I would like to know what support we are providing to students who have traditionally not been placed in these accelerated courses, right? So that they will be successful. I need to understand that, and I think that we need to see that as a system and school by school, because we cannot expect children to rise to the occasion if we're not going to hold them up if they start slipping and falling. And that's what our job is. And to me, that's what our budget is for. As part of this master board analysis, did we look to see if they were including on their master board the courses relative to African American studies, Haitian history, Latin American studies, honors? I mean, the master board, if we did the master board and the school-based team right, we would fix everything in the district, in my humble opinion. But we're not doing it. And so we're now talking about the master board. We had these initiatives back with Eddie Ruiz looking at the master board, and we are still talking about the same thing. And I'm honestly, I'm just sick and tired of it. I'm just sick and tired of it. Now, then the other thing I want to know is when we're looking at this, that acceleration data, what was that data for the high school? I'm sorry, go back a couple more slides because I don't have mine up yet.
014.
No, I'm going to find it. The one before this, the high school, one more, I'm sorry. This one, high school readiness. So we have, okay, the calculations include out-of-school suspensions and absences, right? Now, we pulled the data before and showed, and Mr. Howard can correct me on my numbers. My recollection, it was 1/3, but that might be wrong, but there was a significant percentage of out-of-school days, absences for middle school black males that were caused by out-of-school suspension. Mm-hmm. Now, when are we going to get to the real? Because I'm tired of these reports. I'm serious. I'm tired of these reports. We diagnose the problem. We don't offer the treatment. Then we say, like, another doctor's going to treat them, right? And I'm just saying, or we just waiting on somebody else down the road. I need a plan. I'm just serious. I'm just tired of this. I'm tired of this. You know how long I've been looking at data? Disaggregated data. I got some on the discussion item. I've been looking at this crap 20 years, and I've been listening to these words for 20 years, and it's time. We've got a team that I know believes. And it's time. So I don't even know, where is the problem? Who's got the problem? Who do I need to talk to? Like, where is the answer? I want to scream. Don't give me any more words. I want answers. I want plans. I want to know how we're going to move these children, how they raise their hands and say, I want to try to do better, and how we're going to support them, and how we're going to stop putting them out of school, and then looking at high school readiness, and we're putting them out of school. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll try to be nice to the rest of the meeting, but I'm sick and tired of this. I'm just telling you, I'm tired of it.
Mrs. Andrews, be nice.
But I think this is the piece that I'm talking about, because if we could do some kind of chart to show each school and look at the students that are actually moving into those classes, that's what I saw when I was over at Crestwood, where those children were actually moving forth in those accelerated courses who had not been in them before. So we do need to see it by school, to see the children that actually qualify, those that are in it, and what happens from there. And I've never seen it that way, but when I was walking through, I could see a lot of the children taking the courses that had not had the opportunities before. So if we could really see it from the data point, that would be something that could show us that it is happening all around the district. I'd like to see it more. I haven't had a chance to walk in every school, but when I saw that, I was pretty impressed that I saw the diversity there in those top-level classes. And as I worked with the principal, they talked about these are the children who had not participated in the past, and they were included.
Mr. Deputy?
Yes. So we're going to jump into elementary literacy. I will say that a part of that, and Dr. Robinson, I'll do a follow-up sit-down with you to show you the details on the master board process, how that is going deep. And there's some specific reports that pull out that control for gender, race, by grade level, who's not scheduled into an accelerated coursework, that the principal supervisors developed in-house here, that the schools are now using to go even deeper to those students, making sure that they're scheduled in. And we can show you those to address some of the questions that you brought up about how we're doing that. I'm going to move into the elementary literacy and some of the academic updates.
So for a revision of the elementary literacy resources that we have completed for grades 3 to 5, focusing in especially in grade 3 around LTO 1, we did a complete revision of the lesson plans and the resources, including modules, to provide more resources for our teachers based on the feedback that they were providing to us, including a complete rewrite of the common assessments. We did that to make sure they were more aligned to what the state assessment was going to be like, to make sure that our students were able to see what they were going to be expected to do on the state's FSA at the end of the year. In addition, we provided a literacy resource for our school-based administrators and then also in turn for our teachers to make it easier for our administrators to know what to expect. So we have turned out, starting this year, bi-weekly videos for our administrators to make it easier for them to stay on top of what should be happening inside of literacy classrooms. So they receive these videos that are 5 to 6 minutes. So as a principal or an assistant principal, it can be hard to keep on track of all of the different content areas and what should be happening in 3rd grade or 4th grade. So they get a video saying your students are working on these standards, they should be hearing these vocabulary words, working on these types of questions, so when they go into classrooms, they know what they should be hearing. And then teachers also receive the exact same videos, so there's no surprise in expectations. Everyone knows what's on the table. Additionally, because of the mandatory 3rd grade retention statute, we have made an adjustment to the portfolio process. In previous years for the portfolio, we waited until the end of the school year and after all of the instruction happened in order to create the portfolio. This year, what we have done is we've changed the portfolio process to, we put in mini assessments after every chunk of learning has created for 3rd graders to start working on this process. And then best case scenario, they score a level 2 or higher on the FSA, they don't need the portfolio, that's just fine. But in case they do, they have it there available, and they've now been working on it in small chunks throughout the year as opposed to waiting to the end of the year. It also makes it more manageable for our educators as opposed to waiting until the end of the year. And then also we have made for our students who do have to go to SRA because of mandatory retention, we've changed the daily schedule and then also have made adjustments to the curriculum. Again, you're getting feedback from our educators and getting feedback from our regional reading specialists. So in order to provide students with a better day, a more structured day, so they can meet with better success. And we did that by talking to our neighboring districts that were having better success rates in their SRA days.
We continue to make investments in our classrooms, modernizing the technology through digital classrooms, through the Penny at Work program. As you can see, we've updated document cameras and sound systems, and we're currently rolling out smart panels. We've completed 100% of our middle schools. We're about halfway through our elementary schools, putting a smart panel in every classroom. This is a project as large as any in the country, and we continue to invest in people before products through our Teaching with Technology Trailblazers program. So before we roll out the equipment, we try to make sure that every teacher has been trained. And you can see that we added another 675 teachers this year. We have more Google certified educators than any school district in the world. And 25 or 35 Google trainers. Finally, we're kind of taking that same philosophy into a Leading with Technology Trailblazer programs, targeting our school-based leaders so that they are able to create a vision and lead technology within their school to impact instruction and engage students. Finally, this is something new that we brought to you. Esports is another way that we hope to engage our students and maybe attract and retain some non-traditional kids who wouldn't otherwise participate in school programs through esports. We are running this pilot in 4 schools and are looking at how we connect this to our CTE programs. As you know, on our principal dashboard and other data, we have been targeting chronic absenteeism as kind of a risk in our schools, and we've invested through Harvard Proving Ground in this piloted learning process. This is our second year where we're using data to drive adjustments. This fall, we piloted this postcard in our elementary schools, which led to that 3.7% reduction in student absenteeism in our treatment schools. We also didn't see as big of a drop as some of our other network schools. So we're making some adjustments. That's what this pilot is for, is to learn. And we're iterating on the message, and we'll go back out the second half of this year with some adjustments and hopefully come back with some even bigger results.
So our work with the Wallace Foundation grant and our social emotional learning implementations continued. Our first year, we really focused on our SEL learning with our adult learners in the classrooms, focusing in on our signature practices, including our welcoming rituals, our optimistic closures, and the use of morning meetings inside of our classrooms with our students. Year two, getting into our explicit SEL implementation, so you can see the specific curriculum we used with our elementary and our middle schools. Even though it was year two of the grant, it was year one for the high school that we brought in. So that is why the high school curriculum hasn't been selected yet, because they're still in year one, which is working on the adult SEL practices and on the morning meeting. So they came in a year later. Year three, which will be starting next year, that is when we start bringing SEL, and we're actually moving from explicit instruction into implicit instruction and integrating it into all academics. To that end, we took the SEL team and we have moved them into the academics, the curriculum department, so we can start infusing all of the SEL practices into all academic areas.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a question, so does Dr. Robinson. And Dr. Robinson may have asked this from the past when she's asked for data, I just don't remember, but can you provide us with going back a few slides, with a breakdown of where the third grade retentions took place, disaggregated by the way we normally do that, and which school and where the schools are that had the third grade retention, so the board can see?
You can send a follow-up report.
Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Robinson?
Okay, thank you. So the first thing is, I'm sure I'm supposed to know this, but what is SRA?
Summer Reading Academy.
Oh.
That is the
Okay.
mandatory summer school that any student who is going to be retained must go to. It gives them the opportunity to make up a test score so they don't have to be retained in third grade and can move on to fourth grade with their cohort. That is our
Okay.
goal.
So just a couple more points. So I'm trying to say some nice things. So I want to, when you talked about the changes to the portfolio process, I want to say glory, hallelujah. I'm gonna just leave it there.
Thank you.
Okay. So complaining a lot does work eventually. Okay, so, all right, I'm sorry. So then, the other thing is, I wish you had talked about the mandatory word work that's been implemented this year in elementary, because that's what at least I've been crying for, and our dyslexia advocates have been crying for, and we heard them, and we responded, and I don't know if you have any results on that, but I think you should tell us a bit about that. And then the other thing, you said the word, you knew you were going to trigger me. I don't see the vocabulary list yet. I'm waiting on my vocabulary list, my grade level vocabulary list. And by the way, just so you know, you might want to check the imagery that's on the suggested summer reading list. Maybe we could get some other images. But where's my vocabulary list? I'm a grandparent. I would love to have the words that I should be working with my 4-year-old and my 7-year-old on, right? And I know all that stuff about vocabulary has to be taught in context. Guess what? When I was growing up, they told us to put it in a sentence. That was called putting it in context, and I know how to do that with my grandchildren. But I need to know what words they need to know by the end of 4-year-old land and by the end of second grade. And I mean, and I think if we want to talk about parents being partners, we have to give them the tools to partner with us. And I think these are substantive tools, our vocabulary lists. And I just knew I was going to find it on the website this time.
And we have absolutely heard you, and it is on the rubric for our textbook companies to include in whenever textbook companies come back to us. That is part of what they have to include, and it also has to be on a non-password protected site. So we can post it up, so whatever textbook company we have to go with. So not only do our parents and grandparents and all of our non-traditional families, but also any of our community groups that we're so fortunate enough to work with. So whether it's our Ys, our church groups, et cetera, that work with our students, that they also have access to the same vocabulary lists.
And you have an expansive vocabulary, and I would like to have a vocabulary list for this summer. I think we know the words. I think we know the words that children should know. I think we just need to communicate that. Okay, I'm going to try to be nice.
Okay.
Mrs. Andrews, then Ms. McQuinn.
And thank you. This one's for Mark Howard. Mark, we talked about the trailblazers, as I walk the schools and I look at the wonderful technology, and we do have wonderful technology in Palm Beach County, but we had that discussion about the teachers that were trailblazers and the training for the Glades teachers. And one of the things I had asked about a year ago is how can we get that training out in the Glades, because as I walk through some of the classes, some teachers don't have it because they haven't been trained. So have we improved? I mean, I'm going into a lot of schools, and when I depend on if I'm on to the east of my district, I see all of that wonderful equipment, but when I go back west, I see we don't have as much. So are we getting that training in the Glades so that those teachers, or is it up to the teacher, or will the principal mandate that they go? But when the last time I was looking, I didn't see the same kind of technology from the east to the west of the schools that I walk in all the time.
Yep, thank you for the question. It is, I can assure you the equipment is being distributed to the Glades schools. We, even upon your last request, we did do an inventory to ensure that there is a process for principals to nominate a teacher trailblazer, and then it's upon the teacher to attend the training. We do have, in some schools, lower participation rates than others. We can't mandate them to participate, and we're not paying them. We're giving them classroom technology sets. Certainly when it comes to the interactive flat panels, every classroom is equipped and the training is held on campus. We are seeding other strategies to train more teachers in place where the trailblazers are the teachers of the technology and they don't have to come to a district training. But I believe that we can look at that, but I believe you should see the same proportion of trailblazers and technology in the Glades schools. Happy to pull that report and look at it with you if there's any gaps that we need to fill.
Yes, I'd like to have that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. McQuinn?
Okay, so I didn't know that we don't have vocabulary lists anymore. And I certainly do not. Okay, so my grandson's 17, right? But so those years ago when he was in elementary school, I know I did vocabulary lists with him. So I don't know enough about the elementary reading program to give any kind of recommendation, but give grandparents some words they can study with their kids until we have these new textbooks, please.
Amen.
Good afternoon. I'm here to give you an update on the behavioral and mental health services, as well as some initiatives out of Safe Schools. I just want to start with thanking the community for really making an investment in kids. They have provided that referendum funding that allowed us to purchase and get 170 behavioral health professionals in schools. So we're very excited about that. And this is some of the preliminary data of the work that they've been doing. It was a huge lift just getting them doing, I know you all went through the job descriptions, then HR with the hiring and really vetting them. And then my team worked very hard this summer and had 8 straight days of training when they came on board so that they would be ready. So they have logged almost 42,000 student support activities, and that includes over 2,000 student groups and over 8,000 referrals that they have processed themselves. Either they're seeing the child or they're referring out to one of our other therapists or someone else on campus or a community agency so that our children have services. And not only that, they have attended over 4,000 team meetings. And the team meetings are very important because that's really where this, the group, the school-based team gathers around with all their expertise and tries to problem solve about what, how to help the child so they can be successful academically.
Dr. Mucinek? Mr. Shaw has a question.
Yes.
I have a three-part question. The first part is, how close are we to being fully staffed with the behavioral health professionals in every school? The second part is, are we losing any of them that are coming and we are having new vacancies occur? And third, is the salary range that we identified for this at a level that we're able to keep and attract people?
So the first part, yes, they're fully staffed. They were as of end of September, early October. We had one in every school. There were just a couple vacancies here and there with some hiring issues, but they've been fully staffed. That being said, I can think of a handful of behavioral health professionals who were hired that either thought it wasn't a good fit or it just, didn't work out in those early days. And we have an active applicant pool. So we have people are always inquiring in the district and very anxious to work in this position. So we have a fairly robust pool so that we have some backups if anyone, we lose anyone to attrition. So it's like with 170 positions, you will have people that, they had illness and people have moved and, just the regular things that go along with it. In terms of salary, it has been competitive. People have been attracted by the position, and so far so good with that. So the next big bucket of work that the department does is the co-located mental health professionals. And that's really paid for out of the mental health allocation, which is our funds we receive from the state. And we have 11 agencies that are working in 100 school sites. Okay, so we have them. If you look at our the numbers, we had over 2,000 students referred for counseling services, and this is really our most intense because it's individual counseling. So it is from up to 12 sessions. It's one-on-one with a certified licensed therapist. So we had referrals of over 2,000, and 1,800 of them have been seen. So we're very excited about that program. We're seeing a lot of positive outcomes with students. We have a pilot it's called a student self-report of well-being, and we've done some pre-tests and post-tests, and what we're seeing is they're reporting decreased symptoms of depression or sadness and anxiety, and increased social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making, which are part of our SEL competencies.
Dr. Robinson?
How are you measuring that, the depression and anxiety?
In terms of their responses, it's the student self-report of well-being. It's a student self-report where they say how they're feeling pre and post of the therapy sessions. Before we were getting input from the therapist, and we thought it was very important to go to the consumer, which is the child. So how are you feeling at the beginning of this when you're entering into the counseling relationship, and then how are you feeling, in those last sessions? So far preliminary data is looking good. We're very excited, and we piloted the instrument, and it's based on our SEL competencies, and we're looking to roll it out to more schools and more sites.
Okay, so we can talk about that later. So what happened to the 300 students that were referred but weren't seen?
Well, sometimes parents don't want the services. So we're looking at any barriers that we have seen in terms of why a parent would not want their child to be seen. We're working closely with families. We encourage them. We let them know it's confidential, it's free, it happens on campus. There's so many positive things. So we've been working very closely with families. But honestly, sometimes parents don't want their child seen on campus.
Okay. And we're still working on the portal?
Yes, yeah. That's Caring First website and application. Yes.
I'm sorry, say it again?
The Caring First website and application, the web application, yes.
Yeah, I didn't know that term. And so, let me just say this. So I've had conversations with a number of students who just did not know these resources were available on campus. So it seems to me that we need to get hold to, like Claudia Shea and others, to do internal marketing so that students know that they can like self-refer to, in a sense, to the behavioral health professional, or if there's co-located services.
I've heard that as well, and so we're really looking at ways to market the information, and hopefully I will be able to have a couple interns this summer that are college-age student, younger people who can really help us with that marketing so that we're speaking the language that students will be responding to.
And a start to that is Claudia Shea, along with the communication team, they have started some social media platform in terms of public service announcements as it pertains to these services that are provided. So that's a start, but I do feel that we could do more, so we will continue to work with Mrs. Shea and her team in regarding to getting more into the schools. But right now, we are doing a lot through our social media platforms.
Could we send that to our student government representative and ask him to tell us how? Because the one thing about the message, but I'm also thinking about the how to get the message across. So, like, I don't know if that means there's posters in common areas that say, see Mr. Smith in room, XYZ if you're feeling down or something, or if it's Twitter, or if we have to use Instagram, or if it's morning announcements. I mean, let's ask them how we get them to hear us, and then the next thing would be, how is this message, I think.
Ms. Brew?
Thank you. And so, related to that, we know that the legislature requires every year the parents to do the enrollment form, and the question is asked about whether your child has had any counseling services. I know that they've been complying with the answers, we believe, truthfully, but do you think that's an impediment also to the students seeking help at the school?
Not necessarily. I don't think one is related to the other. I think we can improve our messaging. We have a lot of services out there, and we're working very hard to get the word out, and for parents to understand it's free, it's on campus. I mean, it's really a win for everyone.
I encourage you when you're at the schools to ask, because the principals are saying that these people are used constantly, that the myth of people not accessing mental behavioral health services is not playing out in our school settings, that people want the support.
And then a strong piece too, I don't know if Mary Claire, if she mentioned it, that our Caring First website is definitely live. And the second part, there is a part 2 to that particular platform, and we hope to work on that for the school year 21. But phase 1 definitely went live a few weeks ago. And again, all of that is being out there through social media and trying to inform the public of what's happening.
We work very hard on getting the Caring First website in terms of having it so it was a friendly face for the community and a way to access the resources that we have throughout the district that sometimes is hard to find if, kind of going through our district website. So it's kind of right there for them, easy search access so that they can get to the people they need to talk to and see what services are out there.
Dr. Mucinek, you started by saying that the services are confidential, but and I don't remember what we did months ago when we put this all in place, but is there anything on the student's record in the file that indicates that they've gone to see somebody at the school for depression or anxiety or any of these things? Is there anything on the child's record that shows that?
What we have, we don't say why they may have gone and accessed one of our professionals, but we do have a mental health tab on our student information system that just lets us know that the child is being seen by someone so that we don't duplicate services. So it's there, and then once that's, once it's completed after 8-10 weeks, then it goes away. The flag goes away.
Okay, so maybe some of the parents, I've heard parents in my district that refuse to send their children to anything because they're worried about that being on their record forever, that they saw a mental health professional in school, so this stuff goes away?
No, it's not part of their cumulative record,
Okay.
so there would be nothing that would be there that would indicate to any college or university that they ever saw anyone on our schools. It's just not part of the cum.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Andrews?
Thank you, and I love the work that you're doing. It's really great. But I do have a real serious case that I've been working with a parent, and this is my question. You know, sometimes children are in trouble. They run away. They don't want to go home anymore. They don't want to deal with their parents, and it's a battle between the two. And I'm working with a mother right now. I did refer her back to the school to see how she could get some help, but she was at her wit's end because she said that, you know, they had talked to the behavior person at the school police officer was involved, and the person had run away, and the mother's just at her wit's end as to what to do with the child. So I began to start giving some recommendations. So what do we do for that parent who might have an ungovernable child that's really going through a lot of emotional crisis? How do we help that parent to know what resources are there for her to help her child? I mean, skipping school and living with some other kids and all of that stuff. You know, it's real serious.
We do have a lot of resources within the district and within our community. We're very fortunate. So that would be on a case-by-case basis where we would find out what exactly has been provided, what services have they had, where can we, meet the gap, and to work with the parent individually. And the parents need just as much support as the student, if not more sometimes. So
That's a good transition to the next scope of work.
yes, absolutely.
I would like to refer that parent, okay?
Yeah, to the CAPE, refer them to the CAPE team. You wanna explain
We
the
have,
CAPE?
and so the next piece is the CAPE team. It's our Crisis Assessment, Prevention, and Education team.
I'm sorry, Dr. Robinson has a question.
Before you go to that, can you tell me about the training and expectations for cultural competency with the behavioral health professionals and the co-located mental health professionals?
Yes, we have been working, and I know we discussed, so we have provided like 30 different types of training, and we did do some cultural competency training, and we're working with the local universities. We would like to certainly kind of do something more in-depth with them. So that is on our agenda for summer and fall training, is to really get them, instead of, an hour or 2 hour presentation, something more in-depth. Because it's certainly, it's certainly important.
Okay, well, I don't have any reason to think that the universities are any better than we are, but
No, but we're reaching out to our
work on it.
local experts, certainly, to provide some of that, and we can discuss it.
we can, yeah. I'm just glad it's on the radar, and
absolutely.
we have room for improvement that we can all work on together. So, thank you.
So that brings us to the CAPE teams. And the CAPE teams are really, we doubled the CAPE teams. We had 2 last year. Now there are 4 in all our different locations so that we can access the schools quickly. And they are, they're there to collaborate, support, and they're working on safety. They're de-escalating kids who are in crisis. They've worked very hard. We're working very hard to reduce Baker Acts, and they are trained in de-escalation strategies. And they're there to support schools and parents and students. They work closely with the school police, and they're working on planning and getting extra supports for those students. So they've had 272 contacts. Schools have called them. They've been dispatched to schools in 238 of those cases. So they've been working very hard. Okay. So the next piece is out of Safe Schools. It's our threat assessment. Senate Bill 7030 required each school to have a threat assessment team. We are there. All schools have threat assessment teams. And over 500 school-based administrators have been trained in our current processes this school year. So we have the school-based teams have conducted 559 threat assessments at the time of this writing. And the district has worked very hard at standardizing a process, and they're moving forward in really refining that as well, because they're working with the public consulting group, and hopefully they will bring before you a proposal to really use an electronic database that's going to help even standardize our process even more. But what's really important about PCG's database is that it allows, it talks with SIS, and it gives us district-wide, district system-wide information in real time, notifications. It keeps the record-keeping accurate, and it helps facilitate the information between schools and departments.
Mr. Shaw?
This second bullet on the number of school-based administrators being trained, how close are we to having everybody trained? And if they're not all trained, why have they not been trained this late in the year?
I know that Safe Schools have been offering continuous training. If someone happened to miss a training, Diane Wyatt has personnel there who are talking them through and actually working with them one-on-one through the process. So I can certainly ask her to get that data for you to see if we have any administrators who are outstanding.
And by statute, Mr. Shaw, all the principals have been trained, and they're required to be part of that threat assessment teams. In process is to get all the assistant principals trained as well. Also, school counselors have been trained by statute. Again, they're part of the process as well as school police.
But we have more than 500 principals, assistant principals, and counselors, though, right?
Correct, but all the principals have been trained. We're in process of getting every assistant principal on a team trained.
And are we required to do the training of those principals and assistant principals and counselors in charter schools?
We provide them the opportunity to participate in the training.
Right.
Yes.
But are we required, when we're audited, that we're going to have to report that we didn't do it, we offered it, and will that be satisfactory to the state? All right, I'll let you all check that out.
I can review that and get back to you.
Okay, and finally, the Department of Safe Schools were very excited because two grant opportunities came their way, and they were awarded a climate transformation grant for $3.47 million over 5 years, and that is for integrating positive behavior supports and social emotional learning. And then also the Stop Prevention Grant, which was a DOJ grant, and it's $500,000 over 3 years, where we're partnering with Sandy Hook Promise, implementing Promise Clubs in all the middle and high schools, and implementing the Sandy Hook See Something, Say Something violence prevention program.
General Counsel, with respect to Mr. Shaw's question, can you advise the board at some point, not tonight, but sometime in the near future, as to whether or not we have authority or responsibility to cover the charter schools on this?
Yes, we will.
Thank you.
Okay, during this year, we started the piloting process for 2 platforms that's going to be released, going live at the start of this coming school year in August, which is our ELL platform known as Elevation, and our ESE platform that is known as EdPlan. Our ELL platforms, the pilot started this past August, so we're definitely well into the pilot of our ELL program, Elevation, and currently the pilot is being run in 75 of our schools. We're getting positive results. In a minute, you're going to see in regards to the program management stages and exactly where we are as it pertains to the rollout come August. Our ed plan for our ESE department, that particular pilot did not start until January. So right now we are piloting in 35 schools. We will be adding additional schools as we go through the phases. Along with these pilots, it's important to know that the training for all the affected stakeholders that will be using both platforms are taking place at the same time. Now, these next 2 slides, particularly this particular slide, you're going to see the rollout in regards to the Elevation for our ELL programs. You're going to see the project plan of action in regards to exactly task at hand, what has been completed, what's in progress. We are, in talking with the project manager, Harvey and his team, we are definitely on task, feeling real great about it, feeling that we will be ready to go come the start of the school year. The next slide is going to show the rollout as it pertains to our ed plan, which is the platform that we would be utilizing for our ESE department. It is important to know that when this rollout starts at the beginning of the school year, we will be running both programs at the same time, just to make certain that everything is okay. You know, it's definitely a big rollout. We will have the current programs that are being used in the back, because at the end of the day, we want to make certain that our stakeholders and those that will be utilizing both new platforms, that they are indeed working with the new platforms. The great side of this is that particularly with, our 504 plans, our IEPs and so forth, when our students are moving or transitioning from one school to the next, generally you have to wait for those CUME folders or those plans or so forth to show up. This is all live data, so anyone within the district is going to indeed have access. I have to, of course, just thank Mr. McCormick, Kevin McCormick and Harvey and Natasha, the program management, just for the work that they have done through the pilot of both programs, and we are set. We are in a great place, and we're looking forward to the new models at the start of the school year.
And at this time, I think you might have asked all your questions, but we'll take any more that may be outstanding.
Dr. Robinson has a question.
Thank you. So I need to go back. Well, first, I look forward to this rollout of these platforms for ELL and ESC. I think that'll really move us forward. But there was a comment about Baker Acts, and I was trying to rewind the tape in my head. What I thought I heard was something about decreasing Baker Acts, but what I was told was that at I believe it was a Birth to 22 meeting, that there was data presented that Baker Acts are at an all-time high, and they were theorizing why that would be. So I just need to, did I mishear? Or?
You did not mishear.
Okay.
Baker Acts are an all-time high across, in our district, across the state of Florida, and across the whole country. So we're not a standout in that. It is a heightened awareness about mental health and violence concerns. So part of what the CAPE team does, which has been so helpful, is really getting the child to calm down so that they are not Baker acted, so that there isn't a referral. So they're there with experts in de-escalation strategies to really, our whole point is we don't want a child Baker acted. It's just, it's very traumatic. So we want to keep kids in school. We want them back in the classroom as quickly as possible, and we want to make sure that we have support and services there. So that's part of what the CAPE team does. I will hope that next year I can report that we've had a decrease.
Mrs. Andrews.
And I'm hoping that parents are connected before we Baker Act a child.
It is, yes, they are part of the process in terms of parent notification. Absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. Shaw.
Related to the Baker Act, my understanding is that if the sheriff's office is called, for example, that they are much more liberal in making a determination to Baker Act students than if it was handled internally within the school. Am I right?
I haven't heard that. They have their criteria by law that they have to follow, so it's not like, we get to say, yes, go do that, and they would do that. They have to follow their legal criteria.
But they have a discretion there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We work as a team, so we hope that we all work as a team.
Okay.
And
my point is, on this one is, I think we need to look at that because there were some discussions. This goes back even when I was on the Criminal Justice Commission about the law enforcement Baker acting at a higher rate than many other agencies, and I think it's worth looking at to just see the impact on that.
Mrs. Andrews.
For the ELL and the training for the ELL as well as the ED plan and the ongoing user training for parents. Are we going to make sure that, some people don't have the computer and the online piece, so are we putting something in place for some of those areas where parents may not be able to access this information for the end user? So I'm thinking that's the parents. I know you're working with the schools, so how is that going to work?
Well, right now we're working with, of course, with our stakeholders here, district-wide in terms of all the training as it pertains to when this all roll out and making sure that our outside stakeholders, such as our parents, they do have the training and the knowledge and the know-how in regard to having the access, I'll definitely take that back to program management.
Absolutely, for the Glades region and people where there may not be the computer piece where they can do what they need to do.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
okay. Thank you.
So if you're done, thank you. We want to thank you. On behalf of the board, I know that all of you put a tremendous amount of time, and sometimes we grumble about the length of the workshops, but this was very instructional, and we thank you for all the hard work you put into preparing all this for the board today. So thank you.
Ms. Barber.
We're going to take a 3-minute break for some of us old people to